You are listening to the I Choose My Best Life podcast with Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith, a show that is dedicated to helping you live fully, love boldly, and rest intentionally. For additional resources, visit ichoosemybestlife.com.
Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Saundra, and you're listening to I Choose My Best Life, where today we're going to be talking to the couples who are building together, whether you're building a business or you're trying to build your financial portfolio, you're moving to a place where you're wanting to achieve your financial goals, and you want to do it together. You no longer want money to be the thing that's pulling you apart, and you want to be able to build love and legacy as one. I have with me today Travis Parry, and he has written a book titled Marry and Grow Rich: How to 10X Your Business and Achieve Your Money Goals Together Without Falling into the Workaholic Trap. So Travis, I want to thank you so much for joining me and start off with just having you share a little bit about your background as a business owner and really coming into this topic.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me. I came from a third generation business owner family dynamic. And I always thought being a business owner is great. You have your own time, you have your own freedom. And I explored what kind of business I wanted to be involved in. I found out the one that I thought was going to be amazing turned out to be quite a chore, quite a time involvement. And not that I'm not easily put off by hard work. I embrace that. But I'm always looking for what's more productive, what's better, what's a better solution. And so I jumped into the financial planning industry and I thought this is going to be great. So many people are going to need help. And it was honestly like pulling teeth in that most people don't want to talk about money. They don't want you to know if they're in your family, especially, or friends. And then they a lot of times don't want to refer you to other people, because that's this appearance of I've got to now talk about money with my friends or my work associates or whatnot. So I found really quickly the opposite, that I would be viewed as someone as an expert in my field as I learned about it and became educated, only to really come up against this psychological barrier of money. Money is so taboo in our society. We'll talk about everything else, politics, sex, we'll talk about each other. There's all these things that society just deems as okay to talk about, but money's just not that. So I was hit with that pretty early on. And in my experience, I also saw a lot of couples. I wanted to help them to achieve their goals. But early on, I realized also not only did they have separate taboo issues with money, but their communication around money was horrible. I have couples come in who've been married for 15, 20 years, and they've never set a financial goal together ever. They never talked about what they want to do with children's education funds or what retirement might look like. Basically, like all the easy things, like all the softballs, like they just don't talk about it. And I was really puzzled by this, so much so that I began to expand my knowledge and go back to school. I got a master's in psychology to help out with kind of the psychological block around money, and then a PhD in family and human development to really understand why this was so weird within families and specifically around couples. Once I uncovered that, I wanted to know what good, strong couples were doing. And now I spend a lot of my time working with business owners who are so burnt out. They don't have time on their hands because they feel like they have to do everything for their business. And even some professionals who are stuck in a job that is burning them out, and they're trying to advance their career by opening their own business, trying to make that jump. I work with some of those as well, to not be as burned out and make time to work on those goals together.
I think a lot of couples I think almost every couple probably can relate to this journey with money that happens when you say yes to someone. Recently have been hearing a lot of couples now, young couples that are getting married, younger couples that are getting married, who have this mindset of we're going to keep our money separate. It's like they don't even want to figure out how to make this thing like as one. It's like we're going to keep it separate because that's a little bit easier for us. How do we begin to get over some of these relationship, these psychological money relationship issues that we have that keep us from having a healthy relationship that we can grow on?
So our society is very self-focused, extremely self-focused. I read a study called Climbing Mount Maslow. And in the study, it found that if we go back through history and we look at what marriage used to mean for each other, in the 40s and 50s, it was like that was everything. Like your marriage was the symbol of your existence for so many people. And couples really depended on each other. And there was a traditional setup of mom in the home with children and dad working, and they had these divisions of labor. So to rely on each other, it did take a lot of faith and trust. But with the 60s and free love movement and society moving away from really depending on this marital institution, we now get to the age where today we look at marriage as an option. We look at marriage as that would be nice. Even though the research does show that most individuals, even if they have been divorced, want to get married and want to stay married. That's the bizarre thing. Like internally, inside, like actually they know that marriage is a good thing and they want that. Some will forego it for whatever reason, financial, maybe they're scared they're going to get a divorce like their parents. So we've had the no-fault divorce era in the 70s and 80s, I believe, with Ronald Reagan helping that go national and making divorce easier. Now, I'm the first one to say, listen, if there are major issues, if there's abuse, if there's neglect, I think divorce should be an option. I do, but I don't think that it was meant to be as loose as it is, and Scripture tells us that as well. We shouldn't be here. So now we're in a very interesting situation where most people are not putting a very strong investment of time into their marriage, but they expect that when they do get married, that all of a sudden that marriage is going to make them so much happier, so much better, so much whatever, fill in the blank. So we're actually investing very little and expecting way more than marriage used to be. Does that make sense? And because of this paradox, I really think that society has flipped. We've gone from, again, marriage being normal, natural. This is just, it's hard work. It's something that we do. We sacrifice, we help and save together to, it's optional. And if I make it there, great. And then if somebody does happen to come along who fulfills every need and desire I have, and even if I've never told them, like they're supposed to read my mind and all these things. And then whammo, I'm going to get married only to find out that, gee, it's actually not like I expected it.
How do we help couples get back, even not even get back, get in alignment with each other on their financial goals? Because so even when because I know my husband and I, we immediately were like, nope, you're checking your bank account's my bank account. We're going to have one bank account and we're all in this together. So, okay, that's what I expected when I got married.
Yeah.
Then you have one of us, namely me, who likes to buy stuff. I love Amazon. So that now is really interesting. 20 years ago, you actually had to go in the store, which was its own level of retail therapy. So you have one person who's the spender, and you have the other person who's my husband, who's all about the let's save and let's invest and let's put it aside for this and that. And I'm like, but why? There's a really great sell. So how do we get both parties in alignment and on the same page?
That is my specialty. This is exactly why I wrote this book, Marry and Grow Rich. And there's a couple of reasons why real quick. And that is because business owners, they struggle to grow their business. Sometimes they feel like they're in a plateau. And if you're a professional out there, okay, how can I advance my career, et cetera, without taking more time, spending more time? The biggest issue there is a lot of times they're not very productive. And so they waste a lot of time at work. The way that I look at this is I look at their top most important 5 activities that they should be spending their time. And they should be there 90% of their day, but typically they're there 25% of their day. So after they're done working with me, I help them triple, quadruple their time that they're essentially wasting on other activities. They're busy and they feel busy, but they're not actually doing what they say they're doing. Most financial planners actually aren't financial planning all day long. They're in sales, they're in operations, they're doing all these other things. Okay. So then the growth part. The best way to keep balance while trying to grow a business is to be on the same page financially. So it's not just a good thing, it's vital. It's vital to do this. And how do I know? I've interviewed over 1,600 business owners, and we found that the ones that had great balance and were consistently growing their business, they had an incredible marriage where the two of them were on the same page financially. So how do we do this? That's what you asked. How? There's really three issues. The first is that we have separate financial relationship with money. And you just illustrated it. I am a spender. My husband is a saver. Okay. That's actually action. We'll get to that later. But what is your actual psychological relationship with money? Because we can look at the activity. Okay, Saundra's draining her bank account on Amazon again. Or she's gone to Boot Barn for 3 times in a row. You know what I mean? There's all these things like, okay, we can look at the actions. But why? Let's explore that. If you go to a doctor, you're like, hey, doctor, I think I've got some illness I can't figure out. I'm hurting, but he might say, where does it hurt? And then tell me about your family history. Are your mom and dad diabetic, or have they ever had heart disease issues? Or he might prod a little bit. Why? Because he's looking at 2 things, genetics, and he's also looking at learned behavior. Okay. I don't think there's a financial genetic component, but I think there's learned behavior. So if you grew up in a family where money was evil and you couldn't talk about it, and people that had it, they just stole it. It's like the people that drive nice cars, like I stole it from. We even have this mentality that it's somehow an evil thing to get a good deal or to have wealth. Does this make sense? So then you combine these 2 people and they have various relationships with money psychologically. And now one person believes that money's good and can be used as a tool, and money's evil. You've got problems just baked in. We can talk about communication about money, but the very first step is to understand that psychology. And I'll pause there for give you some comment before I go to these other 2.
Yeah, I think that's so good because we did grow up in very different mindsets. My husband grew up with a family that owned a business from as long as he can remember. He doesn't remember his family not ever owning a business. So that was always part of his mindset, just that kind of business entrepreneur living kind of lifestyle. Whereas I grew up in a very different situation. I grew up basically in poverty. So it's, I got money, I can go buy stuff. And we got money, we got instruments we can invest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that because it really requires us to go into the deeper truth of where does this money relationship and action, as you state, that we're doing. What is the root behind that?
Yeah. And there's a lot of fear around money. And there's a lot of belief systems that just are not helpful. So the first thing I teach is how to get past these blocks and belief systems that are financially related. So you might have gained them from your parents. Yeah, they may have actually been your experience growing up with a friend or starting your first business and it fails. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is not what I want to be doing the rest of my life. And how this has affected you. So it could be experiences, it could be learned behavior from parents, but acknowledging those differences, that's really crucial. But that's not where we stop. That's not the end. That's just the beginning. I believe in acknowledging differences, but looking at where you're the same, looking at what brings you together. So the likelihood, that Dr. Saundra, you and your husband met each other and we're like, wow, he's good looking. And she's good looking. And that's typically that's the reason why you'll go on another date with people. MIT did studies and they found blind dates, male or female, if they were good looking, attractive, then they would go on a second date with that person. Okay. Barring red flags like being creepy and all these other things. So, but that's important for us. We're reading a lot to looks on people and we do judge people by that. Okay. But long term, that doesn't keep us together. Long term, the reason why we stay together as a couple is because we share so much in common. We hear the book, and I even just had a coaching session today. Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus. It is the most widely known couples book ever on the planet, but it's not 100% research-based. In fact, it's not research-based at all. It's based on some ideas that a lot of us relate to and we can laugh about and everything, but it's focused on the differences. Men and women don't stay in relationships because of the differences. We stay in them because we acknowledge where we're similar. So how do we get similar? I teach couples to now say, okay, here's our background. This is our history, but that doesn't have to be our future. So now let's look to the future. Let's look at our values. What do you value about money? What do you value about? What do I value about money? And then let's put those together. And then there's an overlap. Do a simple Venn diagram and look at what is the overlapping area. And it'll be amazing. You can try this with your husband. Do this at home. Like, it'd be amazing. Like, okay, he values investment and you value being able to have freedom with your money, purchasing. Like, that comes from that, right? But as you guys come up with some of these ideas, there may be even some overlap within those values. Oh, wow. We actually both really like being able to do what we want to do with money, having time together. And so as you find that, that's what you build on. That's the shared financial value that you say, now let's create some goals based on those values.
I love this because I think that allows us to acknowledge where we're starting at in the journey without kind of fault or blame or guilt or any of those things. And then, as you stated, see the place where we have commonality in it. What is this financial goal that we can come together around, have a shared responsibility and desire for? So then that becomes a North Star that starts pointing us in the direction of our next steps. I love to take that over into for those who do have a business, who are entrepreneurs or are stepping out into their business. We have 5 minutes left in the show. I want to make sure we cover this because it's really at the heart of your book, this mindset of we can actually have an exponential level of growth without the burnout as a couple. How do we accomplish that? Maybe give us a couple of initial steps on what that would look like.
Yeah. So Maslow talks about this idea that if we focus on ourself at the very top, that's somehow our lifelong goal. That's a 1940s theory that I debunk in the book. In 2010, psychologists actually found that parenting is our number one motivator in life. Second to that is retaining a spouse or staying married. And third is getting married. So our most important motivators in life is marriage and family. Think about that. Everything else brings hollow and not lasting joy. It just doesn't. It's not happiness, is not fulfillment. People that chase money all the time, they struggle with that. But money is a tool. And so how do we do this without burning out? The point is that we help each other. We support each other. And instead of trying to go it alone and feeling this self-fulfillment, we actually support each other in our goals. So how often, I actually have a bunch of assessments to see how closely you're aligned with goals in your marriage. And the majority of couples struggle with this because we're so taught to set our own personal goals and do these things. But what about sitting down and say, hey, honey, I'd really like to work on my physical fitness and hire a trainer and do these things. And will you support me? And sometimes maybe even do that together. The story that I have, real quick example, is my wife, she wanted to run a half marathon. I'm a soccer player and I ran a little bit of track, but not long distance. So that's not my forte. In fact, it's boring to me. But I was like, a good husband would support his spouse. I said, what could I do? How can I help you? And she's like, you can be there at the finish line. You can watch the kids while I go running in the mornings and those kinds of things. I'd really like you to run with me. I was like, okay. I did that for her and I did a half marathon, and I'm not a runner. I'm an endurance athlete. I actually race mountain bikes, but running to me is just like pulling teeth. But because we ran together, man, we were able to just have a better level of fitness. Like, we helped each other. We would talk as we were running. So we weren't running very fast a lot of the time. We were just trying to finish. We weren't trying to beat the records. But what was the important part about this? The important part is if we support each other in goals and dreams that we have, not only does our marriage feel the benefit of that, but we are benefited individually. The root of this book, Marry and Grow Rich, is based on my dissertation work that I did in my PhD at Utah State. And that is when couples have the same values or shared values, they are psychologically have a higher well-being scores. They are happier and more satisfied in their marriage, and they achieve their goals together. Isn't that what we want? We want all of those things. We want to be happy and healthy. We want to have good relationships, and we want to have the money and time to do the things we want to do. To me, I've found that when I've interviewed so many people, that's what they say balance is. It's not an equilibrium of time. It's having the physical, spiritual, and relational aspects of their life, along with their financial pieces, running really well. And when those are getting the time they need and they're achieving goals in those areas, they feel balanced. It's a psychological measure. They feel balanced, even though they're not spending the same amount of time in every area. That's an old myth that we put to bed in my first book, Achieving Balance. But I hope that answers that question. I hope that when we focus our time on helping our spouse, supporting them in their endeavors, not only will it help our marriage, but it will help us.
Yeah, it's so good. We've been chatting with Travis Parry. He is the author of Marry and Grow Rich. And I know you have a lot of different resources and ways of working with couples. Travis, I want to make sure that we have an opportunity for you to share a little bit about some of those resources and how people can connect with you.
Yeah, the best thing they can do right now is you can get my book for almost free. You go to marryandgrowrichbook.com. So spell that out, marryandgrowrichbook.com. You get the book, it's $4.95. You get the ebook, the audio, you get a workbook, everything included. If you want to get the paperback, so many people want that, fine, you can add that for a few dollars, and I'm basically just paying shipping, okay? You can also get it on Amazon and you can listen to it on Audible. You're going to pay like twice the price. So grab it from my website. If you want to know more about me, my podcast, my other books, my coaching, the community that we've created, you can go to balancedgrowthinc.com. That's balanced with a D, growthinc.com.
Excellent. And we will link to your websites over into the show notes so that those who want to go deeper with you and learn more about some of your different, I know you have the balanced growth method and some other ways that you work with people. And so I highly encourage those who are in this process, particularly those who are entrepreneurs, business owners, especially if you notice that this is pulling at your relationship and is actually causing strife and tension and moving towards that workaholic trap. This may be your next step. So thank you so much, Travis, for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate the time.
Until next time, everyone, live fully, love boldly, and rest intentionally. We all desire to be fully seen, fully loved, and still invited to belong. That's what my newest book, Being Fully Known, is all about. Through scripture and story, I'll help you rediscover who you are, whose you are, and where you belong in God's good plan for your life. Grab your copy at ichoosemybestlife.com or your favorite bookstore.